Welcome back to this NewsMakers Extra. We are with the Energy and Resources Minister, Gerry Brownlee. Now, with respect to switching, do we know what proportion of New Zealanders will shop around between the power companies?
No, we don't. The incidence of power switching at the moment is relatively low, and it's somewhat complex. So if someone turns up to your doorstep and says, "Look, here we've got a better program for you, a better plan for you," and you're persuaded by that, then you'll organise. They'll take your ISPN number or whatever it is, and they'll switch you over. But it takes 23 days for that to become effective.
That's unacceptable?
So I think it is, because it theoretically could be 2 months before you see another bill. That might show some comparison. Now, so I'd like that down to a much lesser amount. But I'll tell you what, people themselves need to get on the websites and have a look at their own tariffs. The average household in New Zealand spends, South Island, we spend about up to $2,500 a year on electricity. I heard of a family just today, in fact, who've looked at their options, and by switching companies, now I won't say where to from who, because that'd be a bit unfair, but they are switching to a relatively new player in the Christchurch market, I can say that much, and they're expecting $500 plus as a saving for the year.
Have you shopped around?
Personally, no. I spend too much time in Wellington worrying about the big picture. I suppose I should.
Now, this idea of a $5 million fund to enhance the promotion and the explanations for how one does switch, why is that needed?
Well, that's an idea that's out there. It's just pushed out by the advisory group. Whether we do that or not is yet to be decided.
Who would pay for it?
Well, that would be straight out of the taxpayer appropriation. So that's yet to be decided. But I do think we do have to organise the back of house arrangements so that we can switch in, maybe 2 or 3 days as opposed to 23 plus. And once we've got that, then I think you can give more information to people about comparative tariff rates, etc.
The Electricity Commission, I'm sure many householders have often looked at their power bill and wondered, what on earth does this levy of, $1, $2, $3 a month actually get me? Have we received any manifestly valuable outputs for that?
I think some of their inputs around rules have been useful, and that would be about the stop of it.
Right. So it's got to go?
Well, the review recommends that many of the functions currently undertaken by the Electricity Commission go off to other already existing bodies where they have an interest. So all the things where there's an overlapping or competing function, get rid of that. Just go to the one body that is good at all that stuff. We'll still need a regulator. This, if anything about the price path of the last few years can be deduced, it's that you must have rules about how you go about reticulating electricity, how you organise your supplies to your distributors, and how you in fact organise your customer base so that they can make their own good choices. So there needs to be a rule-making body.
What about David Cagle? Should he be retained in the new authority if the Commission is disbanded?
Oh, look, I can't make any comments about that. This is a discussion documents out there for wider consideration. And who ends up doing what in a personnel sense is a decision for quite some time down the track. There
is a perception, though, that Cagle is an example of a political lackey appointed to a commission that didn't really deliver much. Your comment?
Well, where'd you get that from? Brendan Burns is probably going around saying that. I certainly wouldn't want to make that comment.
All right. The Electricity Commission recently formulated a plan which would see New Zealand achieve 90% renewable power by 2025.
They didn't formulate that plan. That was the previous government's New Zealand energy strategy.
Right.
And it was an interesting document because it spoke about energy but never mentioned things like oil, gas or coal. And I find that a little bit odd if you consider the wider energy mix for New Zealand.
Okay.
But that was, for the electricity, that was a target. We consider that to be an aspirational goal. Interestingly, in the months of June and July this year, we were up over 70% renewable sourced electricity delivered to our homes, and that's quite unique in the world. Can we get to 90 by 2025? The answer is maybe, but because we do have such a dependence on the lakes, you're obviously going to have thermal backup for that. So gas is going to be an important fuel for the future as well.
What about the coal burning station at Huntly? Is it on the skids?
Well, it's got a life that would take it through to 2025, and then we'll see where things are at. One of the first things I did upon becoming Minister of Energy was commit New Zealand to being part of the Australians' Global Institute for Carbon Capture and Storage. The United States has recently joined and they're going to put a lot of money into it. We do have to look to new technologies. And it seems to me, in a country like New Zealand where we have such a huge coal resource, that while it would be detrimental for us to use it at the moment, because of the topic we're going to discuss shortly, climate change, for the future, if that carbon issue can be sorted out through new technologies, then we should be there and have an intellectual ownership of some of that technology.
Just a quick glance over some of the other recommendations from your advisory group. The idea that lines companies become retailers. Orion's Roger Sutton was on here a few weeks ago and was less than enamoured with the idea. Why should it be an attractive idea to the likes of Roger Sutton?
Well, the lines companies are price fixed. They're under very strict price control, but throughout the country they all have very strong balance sheets. And Orion has, for example, returned in its life over $1 billion to the Christchurch City Council. You know, they'll make their own decision about that. All I would say is that it is an opportunity for them. They have a natural customer base here. If I look at Vector in the North Island and Powerco, they're the two biggest lines companies in the country. Both of them have expressed some interest in looking at this. So I'm a little surprised at Orion's leaping out of the blocks quite so quickly.
Meridian, I think it would be fair to say, have a pretty commanding hold over the South Island market, particularly in rural areas. Have they abused their dominance?
Well, you know, I suppose when you're unchallenged, you can be accused of that. And I think the thing we have to do is make sure that any new arrangements means that there will be competitors in as many parts of the country as is possible. And if that puts a bit of discipline onto Meridian, then good. One thing I've been very annoyed about with Meridian is their constant claims that they are a totally renewable generator.
They're very proud of that.
Yes, that's right. But they also are a significant retailer. And last winter, when their lakes were supposedly empty, they were purchasing electricity from Whirinaki that was generated from burning diesel, and they were purchasing electricity from Huntly, which was burning gas. So we've got to just get a little bit serious about this. You can't put electrons in a bag and put a label on them.
Although,
you take them where you can get them.
Of course, one of the recommendations from your advisory group is to do this swap, whereby Meridian become the owners of a thermal station in Huntly and they give up Manapori to Genesis. That would completely sabotage their carbon neutral status, Minister.
Well, I want to make it clear that ministers have made it as clear as possible that we would take quite a bit of persuading before we start mucking around with the asset base of any of the SOEs. However, that option does have some attractions because it would mean that you had a very large company like Genesis with surplus supply on the South Island coming from hydro, and I'm sure that would mean that they would enter the retail market down here. They're the biggest retailer in the country. So that the outstanding example would be that you'd get another major competitor down here to Meridian.
Okay, we'll have a look at climate change and a few other little power matters with Gerry Brownlee shortly. Do stay with us.